5. If there could be a volunteer, we would love it.
Bravo 330 in the area.
Bravo 330 in the area, 10-4.
Bravo 480, copy plate. Miss
Carter
is walking away from John or Robert 7617. And just advise my handheld is not working on any of the channels right now.
Wednesday, 2 p.m. New inmates arrive at Alexander Correctional Institution in Taylorsville, North Carolina. Officers call it one of the tightest prisons in the state. Inmates call it hell. At processing, a convicted murderer gets his first taste of what life will be like at Alexander. The inmate reluctantly complies with a body cavity search. Then, the officer forces him to put on his new prison uniform. Now another officer tells him he can keep only a fraction of his personal belongings. They're small controls, but it's just the beginning. Alexander operates with one thing in mind: total control. Lives depend on it. Alexander houses some of the most dangerous felons in the state. Murderers, rapists, child molesters. 25% of these inmates are never going home. To keep volatile prisoners like these from going off, the staff rules with an iron fist. Assistant Superintendent Keith Widener makes sure inmates know who's in charge the moment they arrive.
One of the things you'll hear inmates talk about when they come into a prison, especially your longer-term offenders, this is my home, this is my cell. No, it's not their cell, it's my cell, it's my staff cell.
Set your background out, step up to Officer Williams, and we'll take you and get you on your man.
I had heard when I was at the other prison that this prison don't allow all that stealing and all that gang banging and all that homosexuality. They don't have all that. So, you know, it's either you're going to go by their rules or you basically just going to hit the highway. You know, they're going to get you up out of here.
Alexander appears spick and span, but things aren't always as they seem. The facility's iron grip may be loosening. There's something seething beneath the surface that could jeopardize the overwhelming security of Alexander Correctional. One of the biggest threats to security within any prison is gang activity. The North Carolina Department of Corrections has established the Security Threat Group, or STG, a special unit to tag gang members and track their movement within the state's prisons. Alexander has 9 gangs operating within its facility. Officers photograph all tattoos and brandings, looking for any gang affiliations.
By identifying these people when they come through the front door, we put them on notice that we know who you are, and if you want to come here and you want to do your time, you know, what you do on the street is your business, but you're not going to bring that into our facility, and you're not going to become involved in it without us holding you accountable for it.
The STG assesses and rates each gang affiliate from 1 to 3. Based on the threat he poses to prison security, 3 is the highest threat. Inmates immediately receive additional restrictions based on their threat level. Those that pose the greatest threat are sent here. The hole. Segregation. prison notorious for tight security, this is where controls are most severe. This is the prison within the prison. Inmates here spend 23 hours a day in a 7 by 10 foot cell. A typical stay is 30 days. Some prisoners have been here for years.
The reason we do not have the problems that some institutions or some facilities have with the gangs and with the drugs is control. We try to stay a step ahead of it, and fortunately for us, so far we have.
Lieutenant James Gribble is the facility intelligence officer at Alexander. Today, he's following a lead regarding a possible power struggle within the gangs.
If the gangs get a foothold in one of the housing units, they're going to run everything.
Gang activity doesn't stop just because gangsters are locked up. If anything, it forces gangsters to become more devious.
They're going to make the non-gang members pay rent to live there, which could be anywhere from $5 a week to $100 a month. And they'll pay it off in canteen, or they'll have their families, extort their family, have them send money and put it in their account. So it's an ongoing thing to try to stay on top of it.
Maintaining that control requires information, but Gribble gets it only in pieces. Inmate mail, monitored phone lines, even rumors and anonymous tips. But to put together these scraps of information, Gribble needs to think like a gang member, and to do that, he needs help. According to Avery Cummings, he got into gangs when he was 6 years old. At 13, he inherited a top rank in the Folk Nation, one of the largest gang alliances in the country. Now he's doing 16 years for putting 2 bullets in a rival's heart.
Really don't feel like too much about it. Just another day. I regret doing it because I got locked up, but I don't regret killing him because I knew it would either come to either me or him eventually.
The STG unit rates Avery a 3, the highest threat to prison security.
I've been prone to violence pretty much since birth.
Over the years, Avery and Gribble have established a unique relationship. Though they each have their own agenda, at times they're able to work together to keep down gang violence. According to the Folk Nation bylaws, we don't wage war on the inside.
Gas alert, alarm. Look off, I dispatch at 138. No contact.
If there's one gangster at Alexander who knows what's going down, it's Avery Cummings.
I heard a rumor that there's a beef between you and Trav. Yes or no?
I don't know the answer to that until we get face to face.
Avery's not a snitch. He never reveals names, and he won't say anything that could hurt his own business.
What's the basis of his beef?
Power struggle.
He may have another reason for talking with Gribble. He could be bargaining for more time before being shipped off to a gang reconditioning program at a nearby prison. The program aims to give gangsters a way out of the life. But Avery's afraid he'll be forced to renounce his gang if he goes.
Don't go to this program with a negative attitude. Because
Gribble's been pressing Avery to attend the program for a long time.
Like I said, I still don't see a benefit from me going.
Well, unfortunately, Avery, all of us reads got to go.
So far, Avery's done everything he could to avoid the program.
I told him, I said, well, if they send me to that program, I'll shut it down. He said, well, how are you going to shut it down? I said, well, it's more than one way. I said, first, I'll start off by beating the crap out of all the committee members.
The threat kept Avery from being sent to the program, at least temporarily. But it also landed him in segregation. It's 5 p.m. Time for Lieutenant Gribble and officers to probe one of their most reliable sources for gang information. Gribble estimates that 90% of the intelligence they gather on illegal activity comes from inmate trash.
It's not the cleanest job in the institution, but sometimes we can get a lot of stuff out here.
I personally done searches where you find them confessing to crimes or writing to their sister, "Well, they didn't catch me doing this robbery."
Unaware their trash is being searched, inmates in segregation think nothing of throwing away incriminating notes with their everyday garbage.
We found one a little bit ago where a guy said he had some white for sale for 40 stamps. He's probably got some cocaine in there. Might have some marijuana in there. But 40 stamps buys a lot. That's a lot of money in here.
After digging through the trash for nearly an hour, the team has amassed a pile of promising leads. They don't realize it yet, but they've just uncovered a document that threatens to undermine prison security and could tip the balance of control at Alexander Correctional.
Agent at address 7310 Clement. They're going to have issues all night long until tomorrow morning when the tech comes out.
In the morning, there's a false sense of calm at Alexander Correctional. The first shift arrives just before dawn. New Officer Larry Carver is about to learn just how difficult it is to maintain control over an entire unit of violent criminals. Unfortunately, he will learn it the hard way.
You never know how to feel because you never know what to expect here. It could be a very laid-back day, or it could be a very hassling day.
At 24, Carver is one of the youngest officers on staff. He's also one of the smallest. He's assigned to Blue Unit, home to new prisoners, prisoners without jobs, and those inmates the prison labels difficult to manage. Unlike in segregation, inmates in Blue are not restricted to their cells. They're free to come and go in the day room. Here, anything could happen.
Keep your door closed at all times. It's for both your safety and the safety of my staff.
For the first 3 hours of his 12-hour shift, Carver manages inmate traffic from the control room. From this board, he can open and close every door on the unit. Prisoners buzz the board to be let out of their cells and flash their cell numbers to be let back in. In between, cell doors must remain closed and locked. Alexander was the first in the state to implement this rule, cutting down on the thefts, assaults, and rapes that can happen inside a cell. But there's always the day room, where inmates can congregate en masse and roam freely. There are few places in Alexander where they have the advantage. This is one of them. The officers on the floor are counting on Carver for their safety.
It is a matter of trust between the officers because you are outnumbered by a whole lot here. Still over 200 inmates to 8 officers at times. But you have to know that the officer working next to you does have your back if something were to happen.
Despite all the controls in place, things do happen here. An undercurrent of potential violence permeates the facility.
Okay, so do they know that? Okay.
Suddenly, Carver's alerted to possible trouble in his unit.
Oh, well. There's an inmate over in Charlie Room that the other inmates found out what he has done, and they're not too happy with it.
There's one crime that inmates do not tolerate, one that could even drive them to murder.
He raped a 3-month-old baby. And the inmates, all the other inmates have found out about that. And they've put him on the so-called hit list.
From the safety of the control room, young Officer Carver stays alert for any signs of inmate justice. But it's vital he realizes that while he's watching the inmates, they're also watching him, looking for any signs of vulnerability. 11 a.m. Rec time. Officers are even more vulnerable on the yard, where inmates can outnumber them 75 to 1.
If the sun jump on this yard right now, we got one officer right there. Yeah. He's standing right here. One officer. But what can that one officer do? He just got his badge. But you really just got his name tag. He's scared himself, to be honest with you.
Officer Michael Herndon works the yard today. He must be prepared for anything.
It usually stays pretty calm out here. I mean, no one wants to get in trouble.
But sometimes, trouble stems from the smallest incident.
There's just a lot of rules that you got to go through at this prison that you ain't got to go through at other prisons. We already doing our time. We know we done wrong, but they still just thinking they can just do us any kind of way because we locked up. I don't feel it's right. I know we done wrong. They doing their job, but they taking it out of character when they do their job. They tell you how to do this, do that, and third. We ain't kids. We grown men. Come on, man. Don't be doing that, man. What's up, man? Man, stop playing, man. You see that got me on camera for real, man. What is that? Man, you over here playing, man. What's up, man? Dumb as hell, man.
Herndon responds before the argument escalates. For this brief skirmish, these two inmates will be thrown in the hole for weeks. It's a testament to the zero-tolerance officers exercise at Alexander. Outbursts can happen at any time in the yard. But one thing the prison has never seen out here is an escape. Surrounding the entire facility is an impenetrable security fence. The same fence Israel put up in the West Bank. Should an inmate apply pressure to any link of the fence, alarms immediately sound at master control, pinpointing the exact location of the breach. Cameras automatically home in to the spot.
She can be contacted if needed.
And a signal is sent to the PPVs, perimeter patrol vehicles. Armed with multiple weapons, a .357, a 12-gauge, and an M14 assault rifle. They circle the prison 24 hours a day. They can reach any section of the fence in seconds. Back in the office, Lieutenant Gribble and Officer Brian Taylor analyze what they've gleaned from the inmate trash, looking for traces of any illegal activity. Most of it is actual garbage, but they've also intercepted suspicious communications between inmates.
The trash in the institution is the UPS of the institution.
Despite being one of the tightest facilities in the state, inmates here have found a simple but effective way to send messages back and forth, using inmate janitors.
Somebody will throw it in at one end of the institution, and it ends up in the other end on its way out, while in between the janitors are digging it out and distributing it. So they use the trash, you know, like UPS, like a courier service, to get things from point A to point B.
The note Gribble's working on is in pieces, but the slang, MOB, points to gang activity.
Men of business, which is strictly their drug stuff, their wheelings and dealings. But MOB's what set it off for us. And then here they got another one. Weed for him, and then it's got MOB underneath of it. So this is all not only gang related, but it's drug related as well. So it might take us a couple hours to get this piece together, but we should be able to get enough of it to find out who's doing what.
In fact, Gribble is just scratching the surface. There are several clues that point to drug activity within the facility. And what the lieutenant is about to discover will blow him away. A drug ring that's larger and more dangerous than he ever imagined. It's chow time for the Men of Blue Unit at Alexander Correctional. This is one of the few times of the day when different units mix. The odds of violence breaking out are now at their highest. To minimize that possibility, inmates cannot sit just anywhere. Officers show each prisoner to a seat. Nearly 300 felons squeeze into one room with just a few officers present, including new officer Larry Carver.
There was a way you've got to learn how to look for things by certain movements, certain actions. You always have to be paying attention to what they're doing.
Subject in a white polo, walking in the street, possibly intoxicated. File 46-3.
In the prison segregation unit, lunch is an unpredictable time for Officer Bridget Wise.
Some days go pretty good. You never really know what they're going to do.
Wise opens a small trap door to pass through food. It's open only for a second, but that's all an inmate needs.
They'll spit on you and throw feces or urine. I've had inmates to try to assault me and miss. I've had 2 different inmates grab me by the arm.
One of the inmates Bridget is about to serve is Harold Goins, a leader of the Bloods, the largest gang in Alexander. Goins has attacked officers before, several times. On the outside, he once violently assaulted a lawyer in broad daylight as she was walking out of the courthouse.
After watching him for about 2 weeks, you know, at all that movement, I caught him one day walking, ran up behind him with a straight razor, cut their throat, and ran.
Goins continues to cause trouble on the inside.
It is no form of rehabilitation. It's torture. It's suffering. It's pain. One thing that the prison system has failed to realize, this doesn't make me better. It makes me more angry. It makes me want to retaliate.
This time, he takes his tray quietly. But another inmate on Wise's rounds gets more than a meal. He gets a punishment. Devin Calhoun is getting served Nutriloaf. The inmates call it vomit loaf.
This is a Nutriloaf, and this is what inmates will eat if they're on a disciplinary. The number one thing that they get put on this for back here is exposing themselves to officers, masturbating in front of officers, female staff mostly, and that has really cut down on that happening. They're on this 3 times a day for 7 days, and they get a milk to go with it. And it's nutritious, but it's nasty.
You got freezer burn, and when you bite into it, it just turns to dust in your mouth. That first thing I ate it, and it made my stomach cramp up, and I've been eating hand
Suddenly, chaos breaks out. An inmate on the lower tier is thrashing out of control in his cell, and it's set off everyone. He won't settle down, but officers know how to handle a case like this.
He has a lot of batteries. When we had him with a staff assault, it took several of us to wrestle him down. There's about 4 or 5 of us to get him down when he goes off like that.
They lock him in the seg shower. In here, he has nothing to throw, nothing to attack officers with. Or so it seems. Suddenly, he starts spitting. At Alexander,
conditions on the island or that was chasing RPs in a waitress. Negative, no sir. Delta 410. Real good, thank you. 410. So we can flag down. And I'm not showing you on a call right now. What kind of call do you want me to build? Delta 410, flag down.
Some inmates have TB, hepatitis B, and other deadly diseases, but the officers don't know who has what. They must react as if under fire. To punish him for his outburst, the team removes everything from his cell. They'll keep it for 3 days. It's another way officers flex their control. Lieutenant Gribble and Officer Taylor continue working on the intelligence they pulled from the trash and segregation. Ultimately, it is a simple, straightforward note they've found that has shattering implications. The details of the note are classified, but it implies inmates are operating a major drug ring behind prison walls. Someone is smuggling marijuana, OxyContin, and Xanax into the facility, right under the officers' noses.
So this little piece of paper that we took out of the trash is going to help me convict about 8 or 9 inmates in drug ring. I still have to do some more investigations, so by the time I get done, we'll have all 8 or 9 of them locked up.
To throw them in the hole, Gribble needs hard evidence. And one way to get it, a surprise shakedown in segregation.
Appreciate all of you here. We'll be searching the sand today. You should search mirrors.
It is a simple, straightforward note they found that has shattering implications. The details of the note are classified, but it implies inmates are operating a major drug ring behind prison walls. Someone is smuggling marijuana, OxyContin, and Xanax into the facility, right under the officers' noses.
So this little piece of paper that we took out of the trash is going to help me convict about 8 or 9 inmates in drug ring. I still have to do some more investigations, so by the time I get done, we'll have all 8 or 9 of them locked up.
To throw them in the hole, Gribble needs hard evidence. And one way to get it, a surprise shakedown in segregation.
All of you here, we'll be searching the sand today. You should search mirrors. You should broke sticks.
Oh yes, this is the fun part of the day.
It's 4 a.m. Officers hope to catch the dealers red-handed.
Lieutenant Gribble is here. He'll be floating between both sides to address any written material that you can clearly identify what it is. And we're trying to get it identified and determine if it is gang-related.
Before the officers storm the unit and wake the inmates, a drug dog makes a quiet sweep, determining which cells are most suspicious. Then, the shakedown begins. Before entering each cell, officers strip search the inmate. They won't even open the door until they shackle him. After they remove him, 2 officers then search the cell. Taking every precaution, a 3rd officer stands guard over the prisoner, watching his every move.
They ain't gonna find nothing in there.
They're searching for 2 kinds of contraband. Nuisance contraband, too much of anything. Toiletries, magazines, letters. Anything that gives inmates more places to hide the other kind. Dangerous contraband. Money, gang-related materials, weapons, drugs. If officers discover either kind, the inmate's time in segregation could be extended. Officers must think outside the box. Inmates have perfected the art of hiding contraband in plain sight.
It's actually a finger out of a rubber glove, and you put whatever the substance is inside of it. Once they tie one end of this right here, they actually drop it in the toilet. They'll take tape, put underneath the lid, flush the toilet. If you ain't paying close attention, it's something that you'll look over real quick, and they'll just reach out and pull it out.
most stuff that I have found has been somewhere common, just like a trash can.
This stuff right here is crazy, man. I ain't never seen nothing like this.
Though they know where to look, officers aren't finding much. Someone may have tipped off the inmates.
I heard y'all coming, but...
Normally the inmates know that we're coming to do a search a lot of times before a lot of the staff does. So it's nothing new to them. They know we're coming, so they go ahead and prepare for it 90% of the time.
It has always been a cat and mouse game in prison facilities between staff and inmates. The inmates will find ways and places to hide contraband. We'll catch on to it, and they'll find another place. It's very much a game to a lot of the population, just trying to get over on us.
But sometimes it's more than a game.
Somebody's dropping a dime on you, man. Somebody out there's got a beef with you.
I got a letter on my desk. It said that you was gonna stick me.
Gribble frequently gets threats like these. Whether or not they're legit, he needs to take them seriously. He knows well enough that inmates have the means to follow through.
This come out of a tray in a microwave. The plate sits on this and it rotates around. They were breaking the fingers off and sharpening down. This is just a handle off of a Bic razor. It's crude, but it will kill you. They can run this in your spine, the back of your neck, snap it off. We can never get it up. And by the time they got an officer to surgery or an inmate, probably be dead.
The officers come away from the shakedown mostly empty-handed. There are no drugs. There are no weapons. But there is one small item. In a gang member's cell, officers find a prisoner's name and number written on the back of a receipt from a local store. Seemingly innocuous, except for one thing. The only way an inmate in SEG could possess a receipt is if a staff member had given it to him. Why would a staff member pass an inmate's name to a gangster? Could it be drug-related? Back in Blue Unit, new officer Larry Carver moves from the safety of the control room and faces violent criminals on the day room floor.
Like I said before, anything can happen. You never know. So it's two different worlds from up there and down here. Yeah, no, this isn't time for interviews.
Almost immediately, an angry prisoner confronts him, frustrated with Alexander's extreme restrictions.
Prison mate, there's a whole lot more than you see. Do not convicts' view of the criminal justice system, penology, etc.
Yeah, you know just as well as I do, there's other ways to handle this.
Well, how's that? What, write agreement?
Well, you have your grievance forms, you have your town hall meetings. Go ahead. That's not purchasing an hour, okay?
Carver's lucky. In a few weeks, that same inmate will assault an officer without warning. But Carver's luck won't hold out for long. Soon, they'll be fighting for his life. Lieutenant James Gribble's investigation into the drug ring has produced some disturbing leads. The mysterious receipt found during the shakedown in SEG implies a prison staff member is somehow involved with an inmate. To further the investigation, Gribble will have to question some of the most dangerous convicts in segregation. Harold Goins sees a lot of what goes on back in SEG. But getting him to talk will be a challenge.
It's like they try to pick us for information. To me, I'm not a snitch. I'm a straightforward individual. You know, because certain things is not meant to be spoken.
For Goins, actions speak louder than words. At a previous facility, he attacked an inmate who uttered a racial slur.
I kicked him in his face. His head hit the bars, and then from there, you know, I just beat him too. He didn't get back up.
Goins paralyzed the inmate. For him, violence comes naturally.
I'm sort of a cold-natured person. when I commit a crime, I don't have an instinct for it. Emotions is something I'm really dealing with. Because I never grew to love people. So it's nothing for me to do what I do, I just do it.
Now this cold and calloused inmate faces the lieutenant in the hot seat.
I got a bad drug problem, dude. And you're aware of it. See this cat right here?
Gribble cuts to the chase.
If I come to you and want to buy some Rotten or some Oxycontin or some Xanax, what's it going to cost me?
I'm not sure because I don't buy pills.
Alright. You want to read?
That's the only thing I deal with.
How much a cat?
$10.
$10? I can get 15 for 100 still.
Yeah.
If Goins knows anything about the pills, he's not saying. But he talks candidly about marijuana. So Gribble presses further.
When I left the yard,
let me ask you this. If I was a dirty staff member, and you want me to bring in ounce, 2 ounces, 3 ounces a week, how much I'm going to get for that? How much you going to give me to do it?
I'll pay you $250 an ounce.
$250 an ounce?
$250 an ounce.
All right.
To probe the staff angle, Gribble brings in the gang member who was caught with the receipt. Javon Monk is doing 41 years for kidnapping and armed robbery.
My concern is this comes from outside. And you know what my boss asked me when they showed him this morning? I need to know if you got it from a staff member or not. That's what I need to know. But a staff member had to give it to somebody in order to put that on. So where did you get this from? Janitor pass it to you? No comment. You know what I'm up against here. If I got staff members dealing, I need to know about it. And if you don't want to tell me, I can't make you tell me, but I gotta ask. All right.
Most inmates are reluctant to talk, so Gribble brings in the one he's come to depend on. If Avery Cummings can't point him in the right direction, the investigation could sputter to a halt.
I got a question for you. Hypothetical situation. I'm you. And I want to score Oxycontin, Xanax, Rottens. But who would I contact to do? I mean, how would I go about doing it?
I don't do the pills, so I really don't know.
All right, let's say I want some reef.
I just talked to my brother. Somebody knows. That's all I know.
It's not going as well as Gribble hoped. Avery has an occasional connection for marijuana. And as for the other drugs, he claims to be completely ignorant.
You got any idea how much it's selling for? I mean, I know it's here.
I heard it's here, but I ain't been around, so I can't say I don't know what nobody charged for that and all that other stuff.
So it's no longer in the vehicle?
The only thing I concern myself with is my specific drug choice. If it ain't that, then I don't pay no attention.
For Lieutenant Gribble, it's a crushing disappointment. Just when he needs Avery's insight most, Avery can't help. What's more, the days of looking to Avery for help may be coming to a close. Gribble has news about the gang rehab program.
The way it looks right now, I'm waiting to get word from Raleigh if when they're gonna take you in that program. Could be tomorrow.
For Avery, the news is devastating.
They don't understand some of us have died for going through this program, just for completing it. Because in order to complete this program, you've got to sign some paper.
Avery's gang has made it very clear. If he signs away his gang affiliation, they will kill him.
This is what came to me word for word. If I sign any paper with that program, my life is forfeited. So now why would they subject me to something that would possibly take my life? So now I'm stuck with two choices. Get in trouble and stay away from that program. Stay in a hole for 9 years until I get out. Or go to this program and possibly die when I get out.
Back in Blue, it's just another Saturday afternoon for Officer Larry Carver. Suddenly, he gets an emergency call. 2 inmates are fighting on the upper level. The first officer on the scene breaks up the fight, but when Carver reaches the top of the steps, the inmates turn toward him. As the first one approaches, Carver reaches for his pepper spray.
He said, if you spray me, I'll beat you. And he took 2 steps forward and I sprayed him. And then he just came back swinging and backed up, and I fought with him for a little bit and got one hit in the back to the back of the head and went down, and that's all I can remember. After that, I remember going down and not really much else.
Unit Manager Eric Dye is still piecing together exactly what happened.
We don't know the full details behind this all, but we just know it was pretty bad. And it was really uncommon because we're used to inmates and inmates, but we're not used to inmates sending our staff out to the hospital.
The fight between inmates may have been faked, a setup to lure officers to the scene. It was over in less than a minute, but in that time, inmates severely beat Carver and 3 other officers.
In my position, even though it only took 15 seconds for backup to get here from all different units, it felt like an eternity to me. It felt like I was 20 minutes up there before anybody showed up. But, I mean, you watch the tapes of it, 15 seconds.
The North Carolina Department of Corrections won't release the security cam footage, but the incident shows just how little time inmates need to turn the tables.
There's no way to control everything. During this incident, you had day room open, so you had 48 inmates in the wing, just sitting around everywhere. There's no way to control something if it was going to go off. And it went off.
A squad of 15 officers responded to the emergency and took the unit back by force. But some problems in prison require a different strategy. If Gribble intends to get the drug smuggling under control, he'll need inmates working with him, not against him. Now, there's only one inmate who can truly help him. But to do so, he would have to rat out other inmates. And in prison, that could be fatal. For Gribble, the challenge will be getting him to talk without getting him killed. Lieutenant Gribble calls upon the final lead in his investigation, an inmate who definitely knows about the drug ring and the possibility of staff involvement. The inmate who wrote the note Gribble pulled from the trash. Finding him was easy. He put his cell number on the note. Now the question is, will he talk when talking could get him killed?
I'm just going to ask some questions about all this stuff, and I need just get some answers from you. All right?
For his own safety, the inmate's identity is obscure.
What do you know about?
Despite the potential consequences, he doesn't hold back.
Marijuana, chips. You buy it from the canteen, they'll just give you a bag of chips. That way it looks like you're getting chips, but you're really getting drugs.
If Gribble's surprised, he doesn't show it. He wants to keep the informant talking.
What kind of pills are you doing?
Anything gets handled. Most of the deals are like Oxycontin, Xanax.
The inmate is spilling it all, giving up everything and everyone he knows. With each answer, the full scope of the drug ring begins to take shape.
What about him?
It's wild. Brings him stuff to visitation.
You know that guy right there?
He gets them himself from medical.
How's he getting them in?
Mother brings him.
His mother?
Yeah.
He seems to be giving solid information, including the methods visitors use to smuggle in drugs.
If they bring it into visitation, how they getting it in?
Well, some of them they just put in the bra. And then some women will do like a pull a string, hold like a quarter wrapper, get a quarter wrapper, put the dope in a quarter wrapper. They put a string on it, like a tampon string, and then stick it, you know. Right. And then they go to the bathroom, take it out, come and take it and give it to him in their suitcase.
Suitcasing refers to hiding contraband in the anal cavity.
But he never tells anybody what he's getting or when she's coming.
The inmate continues to reveal vital information. Suddenly, without any prompting, he gives Gribble his biggest lead yet.
I heard rumors of a school teacher doing something, but I've been back here for a while, so I don't know.
Which school teacher?
I don't know. I just heard guys talking about school teachers.
Carrying stuff in here or what?
Yeah. Heard the guy started out small, asking for clothing and stuff, just more or less getting comfortable.
On second shift?
I don't know, it's on the school.
I'll find out.
On 913, yes, sir. 913.
Over the course of a half an hour, the inmate has named names, revealed smuggling methods, and offered Gribble what could be the most shocking information of all. The drug ring may involve his own staff.
I'll take care of it. I probably got 5 or 6 staff members tied into this somehow, or rumored to be tied into it. That we haven't proven yet. Money, transfers, muling drugs in here, making contacts on the street. So it's going to be a big investigation to get all this busted up. All these guys down here.
Armed with new intelligence, Lieutenant Gribble assembles the trusted members of his staff. It's time for a sobering discussion.
We got a serious drug problem going on. Oxycontin, Xanax, Ritalin, marijuana's coming in here constantly. And with that amount of drugs in here and with the amount of money that's being generated because of it, someone's going to end up getting seriously injured or killed over this drug problem. We've identified some of the suppliers and the users that we know are doing it on a regular basis. From what I understand, the biggest percentage of Oxycontin and Xanax are coming in during visitation. One guy's mother brings it in here on a regular basis.
Once he's laid it out, the lieutenant hits the group with the hardest news of all. One of the worst possible situations in any prison.
I know staff is dealing with inmates. This receipt with another inmate's name and opus number on the back was from a staff member. He couldn't have got any other way.
The receipt is now just one of the leads that points to staff involvement. Fortunately, it's one that's easy to follow.
I'm going to contact the manager at Walmart. I'm going to pull her video. She's got the register number, time of day, operate, and I'm going to find out who passed this receipt. I'm going to find it and put the word out. If the staff member's carrying in here, I am going to get them.
To collect concrete evidence, Gribble will use surveillance equipment to catch the suspects in the act and get the drug problem under control. In the morning, guards arrive at Avery Cummings' cell in segregation. They tell him it's time to go. With no warning, Avery is being transferred to another facility. He has no idea what awaits him.
New procedure.
Gribble breaks the news, and Avery's worst fears are realized. He's finally being sent to the STG gang rehab program.
You'll be going to the STG unit from Marion. I just don't know when.
I'm going back to long-term side.
I don't know. That I don't know. Because your file's already full. So I called there yesterday, and they still have it, so obviously they're anticipating on you coming.
460 arriving.
So just get with Officer Rich, and he can give you more information on it.
Avery knows the only way to avoid the program is to do something that will keep him in seg. But the program isn't going away, and he's got 9 more years to serve.
You and I go back all the way. And I want to see you get jammed up over some stupid stuff. So keep your head about you. You'll be flying in a minute.
You almost here, my dear. 55035.
It's a hopeless situation, but Avery is philosophical.
Depends on how you live with the situation. Could be good, could be bad.
As one inmate leaves, another wave arrives. and the cycle continues. Arriving convicts will look for new ways to get around the system, and officers will try to maintain the upper hand and keep the inmates in check. For Officer Larry Carver, that means returning to face the inmates who put him in the hospital. No longer green, Carver has passed through the fire of initiation.
You still got to stay on your toes because you don't know what they're up to. None of us are mind readers. We don't know what's going on with them. And all we know is just the information that we get. So just always be prepared. You can sit here and have the most maximum security prison on earth, and it still happen.
At Alexander, the potential for violence is always there. Each week, more inmates shuffle in. They could be murderers. They could be rapists. They could be drug dealers. For Lieutenant James Gribble, every new inmate could be a source of information or trouble. But for now, he sets his sights on finishing the job at hand.
The drug investigation will be concluded. I will.
McDonald's at 6th and Baldwin.
925 transit 1044. 35, subject 36. Rule 9 is transit, was Rule 9, please. 385, subject 36.
Full station, 27 outbound. Full station. Please hold for the Route 29, then passengers please. Route 27 outbound, be copied.
That's Adam, Sam, Henry, Lincoln, Adam, Nora, David.
The inbound 23, that will become the 27 outbound.
What's it like when one of your friends on death row is led away to be executed?
Well, you spend, years and years and months and hours of every day with a person. You talk every day, hey, what are you doing? And, let's eat something, let's make something to eat. And, and he eventually comes by one day and is like, yeah, I gotta go, man. And when he leaves and turns his back and walks down them steps, he ain't coming back. They're gonna kill him.
About an hour's drive south of Chicago in the state of Indiana is one of America's oldest and most notorious maximum security prisons. The majority of the 1,900 inmates here are serving long sentences for unspeakable crimes.
And when I came at you, I wasn't just going to stick you an inch. I was going to run something all the way through.
12 are due to be executed on the orders of the state. For 2 weeks, I was given privileged access to this dark and forbidding world.
I do deserve to be executed. Bottom line, I ain't gonna candy coat it. I deserve to be executed.
Welcome to Indiana's state prison.
Thank you.
My introduction to the prison was dramatic. The man who runs it, Superintendent Bill Wilson, agreed to take me to death row.
So this is actually the entrance?
This is the actual entrance, and it's 2 floors. We only have 12 men on the row right now.
You have to sign yourself in?
Mm-hmm.
The superintendent comes to death row every week to check on how the inmates are coping.
Superintendent, these are the pictures of people on death row?
Correct. These are the 12 gentlemen that are on death row, and it shows their cell location so that staff never have to question where they're at. No staff members are allowed on the unit when the offenders are out. So the offenders actually will secure themselves in the cells, and then their cell doors will be closed or opened as they need to come in or out.
Do you like any of these people?
Like, they're all different in many ways, and I am respectful of who they are, what they are. Would I call them my friends? No, but there's some characters here that have some personality characteristics that you would say are likable.
He knows them all by name, and they know him.
McManus, it always amazes me how clean that cell is. Keep it up. I know.
Hello.
You not in trouble?
Yeah.
All right. Wilkes, how's your eyes? You been over to medical at all? Okay. I'm all right. How are you? How you been? All right. You? All right. How you doing?
Hi.
Is tension high? Okay. I'm good. All right. Richie?
What's up?
All right.
What's all this?
Mr. Ritchie's wife, I believe, is from England.
Which part of England is she from?
St.
Uh-huh, in Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I met her about 4 years ago on a pen pal, and we hit it off instantly. And she came over and visited, couldn't get enough, and married me.
How often do you get a chance to see her?
Every weekend.
Do you mind doing this?
No, not at all.
Yes. It is very, very unconventional, though, because the end game in this relationship is one that you know and she knows.
Well, yeah, kind of, because a lot of guys can get off death row. A lot of us are getting off death row. But cases like mine and like another gentleman back here, you know, we didn't kill no women or kids. We were charged with shooting a cop, a police officer. They just don't let guys like us, no matter if you got good issues in your case or not, legal issues to let you off death row, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean?
She knows that and she married you.
I found something now. See, I was a stupid kid at 19 and 20. I made very poor decisions. I would make decisions. I would do things without thinking about them. I didn't give a damn about the consequence at all. That kid, to me now, 32 years old, that kid's gone. I'm not saying I'm rehabilitated. You know.
You're not saying that?
No, I'm not. But I am
Why
saying,
not?
because I'd be bullshitting. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I'm the kind of guy that does need to be in prison.
Why are you the kind of guy who needs to be in prison?
Because I'm the kind of guy, if I get fired from a job and I can't find a job, I'll do it the legal way, try to get a job, and I can't find a job, and I can't pay my bills, I'll go get a gun and I'll pay my bills. And I won't think nothing about it. It won't bother me at all.
You've described the person you are, but how do you see your life looking down the line? Where does it go? Where does it end up?
Either in a box or doing a life sentence in population. That's my choices right there. Doing a life sentence or being in a box. And I gotta watch my wife roll over through these bars.
Santa Fe Arms Apartments.
We have somebody needing a cab here at the cab stand. Paying customer, cab stand.
Out in the general population, convicts are allowed yard time, 2 hours recreation every day. Save for taking showers and meals, this is their only opportunity to mix and to make animals.
Have you been here a long time?
27 years.
How many?
27 years.
27 years.
I was heading to the Administrative Segregation Unit with Lieutenant Gillespie. The men here are among the prison's most dangerous.
This is Sergeant Fagan. This is his unit.
Get out of here!
Many of the offenders here are gang members, drug dealers, and sexual predators. Everything they do is monitored and carefully controlled.
Could you tell me what this list of names is all about?
All right. Every cell house in Indiana State Prison has one of these. The idea behind this is to make sure we know where everyone's at, what they're doing, who they are, why they're here, etc. For example, if someone would accidentally take out 508 and 509 together, and let's say they, 508 owes 509 money, so 509's mad about it, and they get put in the shower together and the door's locked, and he has a weapon on him, 508 could lose his life. Like that. Just because someone made that mistake. So that's why it's important to really understand this board.
Do you feel that you must be constantly vigilant?
These guys have nothing but time. Okay, we're going home, so we're thinking about going to dinner with the wife, going to dinner with the mom, whatever. These guys have nothing but time. They're sitting here, and these guys, they're smart. They don't forget. So let's say you made them mad 2 weeks ago. You forgot all about it. They don't. So let's say you're sitting here minding your business, doing something, come up behind you and assault you. Yeah, you got to be awake. You got to be on your toes.
The offenders in this unit are locked down for 23 hours a day. And when they're allowed out for their 60-minute break, they're kept apart in individual steel cages. One of the men is 38-year-old Ronald L. Sanford. By any measure, and in any prison community, his is an exceptional story.
When did you come here to Indiana State Prison?
Well, I came here in 1989 at the age of 15 years old. I was actually convicted of the crime that I'm here for at the age of 13 years old.
And what was the crime?
Double homicide. So I committed a double homicide at the age of 13 years old. At the age of 15, my case had ran its course through the court, and I was sitting here to this prison in 1989.
Double homicide at the age of 13?
13, yes, sir.
That's very, very young.
It's tragic, to say the least, and it is very young, absolutely. It's unheard of, Wow. It's unspeakable, to say the least. Even reflecting on it almost 25 years later. In August, it'll be 25 years since that crime took place. It's still very vivid, it's still very poignant, it still resonates, and it still has the same amount of tragic elements involved in it now as it did then, and it will always be with me for the rest of my life. I always say it's like an albatross around my neck. No matter where I go or what I do for the rest of my life, it'll always be with me.
What were the circumstances which led up to the incident which led you in prison at the age of 15?
Me and a friend had basically planned to get money to go to a fair, and to do so we're going to cut grass. We went to a home basically, and they said they didn't want their grass cut, and rather than continue on the vein and go to the next home, we decided to push into the home essentially, and it ended in a double homicide. It's that simple. And for our complicity in that crime, I was sentenced to 170 years, 170.
You got a sentence of 170 years.
Yes.
However you cut that, you were not going to get out of here.
I'm eligible for parole when I turn 100 years old.
Have you ever thought about all the things that you have missed that other 15-year-olds go through as part of their normal lives?
Absolutely. I've never been to the prom. I've never driven a car. I've never had a driver's license. I've never filed tax returns. I've never been on an airplane. I've never traveled abroad. Should I continue? My life has been lived in this prison, and it seems as though I've been in this prison so long that I've never been free. 25 years in prison, you know, it's a long time.
Especially when you come in at the age of 15.
Yeah, really.
Hey, well, thank you so much for talking to me. Thank you for taking the time.
I appreciate you.
Where's it at?
My first meeting with Sanford was a shock, but there were more disturbing cases at Indiana State Prison.
I'll find out whether they're going to transport. I'm going to get the operator to write the incident report. 330 clear, anyway, you try to get it on, so you didn't have enough money. You tried stepping out from this one. It just went out on the doorstep. Check, do you have anybody working on duty at 1036?
One of the oddities of the American prison system is that an inmate can spend 20 years on death row exhausting the appeals process before he's executed. In all that time, convicts are confined to this cell block and have little contact with the rest of the prison. Paul McManus killed his wife and 2 young daughters.
Mr. McManus, the first thing I noticed about your cell that is terribly clean, very different from any of the others. Why is that?
I feel if I don't use it in a month, then I probably don't need it.
Yeah, but it's more than that, isn't it? It's particularly clean.
Well, me personally, I don't read or write, so I have a lot of time on my hands. So I clean because I don't write letters, I don't read books. There's only so much on TV you can watch before they show repeats. So it gives me a lot of time. So I just take pride in cleaning my cell.
Was your life before you came to prison very similar? Were you a very tidy person then?
Not so much. I worked a lot, so I was always busy. So I like to stay busy. It keeps my mind. It works both ways, I guess. You know, I keep busy in here, but I've pretty well done all I can do in here. I might have to move to a different cell and do the same thing, but I've been here over a decade, so I'm just now getting it where I like it.
Does being on death row take a physical, emotional toll on you?
Oh, it's definitely up and down. Definitely. Now, I did weigh 250 pounds almost 2 years ago, and now I weigh 166. Now, I have pictures of them if you would like to see them. I got them right here, matter of fact. And you can see the difference.
So this is...
it's all me.
This is all you. So you lost a lot of weight.
Right. It's depression a little bit, you know, and it's also just, it's like I said, it's a roller coaster. It's up and down.
McManus sees more of Indiana State Prison than the other men on death row. He's a diabetic and is allowed a daily visit to the prison hospital. The authorities must treat him, although they will, in all probability, put him to death one day.
Well, here we are, out of death row and into the sunlight. Is this the only chance you get to mix with the rest of the general prison population?
Yes, we don't have a lot of contact with them, so it is nice to be able to come out and see people that you've maybe been locked up with that are not on the road no more. And every once in a while, you can, you know, have a little bit of contact with that person, just for a brief second.
Were you on any kind of medication, like insulin, before you came to prison?
Absolutely none. Zip. Now, you know, I take quite a few pills and the insulin shot. It all comes down to the food and also how you have your ups and downs where you gain weight and then stuff like that. So, I mean, that does play a factor. What's nice about, well, here's the nice thing about being a diabetic is that you do get to get out and come over to the hospital daily, and then to be around regular people, it's nice.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
See you later.
The rest of the prison is distinctly different from the oppressive gloom of death row. Lunchtime in cell block C. Prisoners have a chance to spend time in the open air. They can also earn privileges. Some have jobs and can request a haircut twice a month. All the barbers are convicts. Rick Parrish is serving 3 life sentences, plus 10 years.
I must say, walking into this place is one of the most extraordinary experiences I've had for a long time. You wouldn't have thought that this was a barbershop or in a maximum security prison.
Well, we work hard to keep it unique in here because we like the atmosphere. We like being able to come in here and relax. It's neutral territory for gangs, for officers. I mean, if you come to the barbershop and you're a gang member, would you start trouble with a guy that's standing here with a pair of shears in his hand like this?
No, I wouldn't. I suspect not, too.
That's why there's no trouble in here.
There's still, though, this feeling of unreality about people with instruments like these in a maximum security prison.
I've been here 37 years. We've never had an incident in the barbershop. We've never had an incident with the shears. Never had a problem.
You've been here since the 70s. That's a long time.
January 75.
Long time.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you do it a day at a time, like most of us do, you do time a day at a time. Sometimes an hour at a time, sometimes a minute at a time, whatever it takes to get through. Then you look up one day and 37 years have went by. There you go, young man.
All right.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Rick, what are we looking at here?
A little history of the penitentiary and the barber shop. The shop was remodeled in August of '76, and that's the first picture taken in this shop. Yeah.
Is that you there?
Yes, it is.
So this is your wall?
Yeah, I'm all over the wall because it is my wall. And this.
And you're pumping iron here?
Yeah, that was probably 20 years ago when I was eating anything that didn't move and pumping iron at the same time.
So this is a catalog of your life in pictures?
Yeah, because you can see the progress from what I looked like in '76 up here to where I'm at right now. Here, that's the newest picture.
What emotions do they invoke?
Wishing I was out there doing it right. Wishing I could start all over again at 29, 30 years of age and not make the mistakes I made. But you get past, after 37 years, you better be past all that. You know, have your head screwed on, you know, make the best of what you have.
But the pictures are constant reminders.
Yeah, what was. You know, that's like, you know, all of us that got here were violent criminals to get here.
What was your violent crime, Rick?
I'm in here for kidnap robbery. I pulled a robbery, and the car I had wouldn't start, so I commandeered a vehicle, and there was 3 people in it.
All the pictures here, you have it on, mounted on cardboard?
Yeah, it's on cardboard, so if I ever get out, I can take it with me. That's what it's for. I fold it up and take it with me as a reminder. You don't want to go back.
I went back to the administrative segregation unit to see Ronald L. Sanford again. His story haunted me. A killer when he'd barely entered his teens.
RL, hi. How you doing?
I'm all right, yourself?
Good. How do you get accustomed to life in this environment?
It takes some getting used to it. It's tough. There was a young man on the range, he was a very young man, maybe 19, 20 years old. He's exhibiting psychosis. And they took him to see the psychologist because he's having trouble adapting. This is an abnormal environment for a human being, certainly. You know, these are essentially cages. And to think that we stay in 24 hours, 23 hours a day, come out for an hour a day, it's taxing.
May I have a look in your cell about...
Absolutely.
Have a look at some of the books?
Absolutely. You absolutely may. So.
Yes, Lieutenant, would you mind opening up? I'd just like to have a look.
Yes, sir. You can take whatever down you want to take down.
And war against the weak, what's that about?
Eugenics.
Eugenics?
Yes, sir. America's attempt to make a master race, essentially.
And this one is the tree of life. What that's about?
Yes, it's Kabbalah, actually. It's more metaphysics, essentially. Those deep questions about man, where he comes from, where we're going, and who we are, essentially, yes.
I see that you have, in addition to your books, you have some of your own writing on the walls here. Strength, well-being, and health.
Yes. Just something I try to focus on. If there's anything I want to stay my mind on, as I always say, it's something progressive. So being strong and having a good disposition and being in good health are certain things I definitely want to focus on.
And you have written here, no man is your enemy, no man is your friend, every man is your teacher.
Yes, sir.
I'm also standing here, and I think these are the parameters of your existence.
Existence, absolutely. These four walls.
It's a pretty isolating place.
It really is, if you see it as such. It's isolated only to the extent that you think it is. You know, I mean, those books allow for a great escape and for to be able to leave the confines of the wall. So.
But I'm only in here for a few minutes, and I feel it as such. I feel it. I feel the isolation.
Everybody in this building feels the confinement that we're suffering here. You know, you put an animal in a cage for too great of a length of a time, it goes crazy. You know, how much more so humans? You know. So.
This is what Sanford looked like when he came here at the tender age of 15. His murder of two elderly women in 1987 netted him the meager sum of $5. On that vile act, he must reflect for the rest of his life. Prison life moves to the relentless and monotonous speed of an unchanging routine. Some inmates get the chance to relieve the tedium by working. At the end of his shift, Rick Parrish, the barber, returns to what's called an honor cell, to which only the most trusted prisoners are assigned.
And they're all two-man cells?
Two-man cells.
Yeah.
This is my cell here.
Rick, who opens the doors? Is that controlled
by the computer? Up in the office there's a computer, controls all the doors, controls our water.
May I come into your cell?
Sure, please.
Thank you. And this is your cellmate?
Mike.
Hi, Mike. I'm Trevor McDonald.
Nice to meet you.
How long have you been sharing a cell with Rick?
Oh, about 2.5 years. Isn't that about right, Rick?
Yeah, that's correct.
So which is your side? Oh, this is your side. It strikes me, too, that there has to be a rather clear division of what's yours and what's Mike's.
That's Mike's cabinet over there, and he has all his commissary and stuff in there. This is my cabinet here, and I have my commissary and things in here, but in general, we're sharing a space.
You have to try to give the other person their privacy. If he's doing something and he's up walking around, I try to stay over there, and he does the same for me. Just try to take turns doing things, because it is close quarters.
So this is an improvement from any other part of the prison.
You've been in a regular cell house. You've seen how they live over there. You've heard the noise. You hear how quiet it is. It stays quiet like this most times. And sure, you have to put up with another human being, but it's worth it. It's worth the sacrifice.
Rick's honor cell does not insulate him from one stark reality. Death row is within shouting distance in the same block.
What is it like to live so close to death row?
Well, I just block it out. I don't pay any attention to it. I'm a barber and I won't even go in there and cut hair because I don't want to get to know any of them. You lose enough friends through attrition in here as it is without them being on death row. So I don't even want to get familiar with them.
Why don't you want to get familiar with them?
Because you get friendly with them, you get to know them, they get executed, you've lost another friend.
Does the mood change perceptibly just before an execution, in the days before an execution?
Yeah, it gets even quieter. Everybody knows the last one, I think, was Wiggles. He stopped here, hollered down through there. "I'll see you, fellas."
He said that?
Yeah, he hollered out. Everybody's usually awake. We used to, midnight, we used to beat on the bars.
And how many times has that happened since you've been here? How many executions have there been since you've been here?
I've never kept track. Like I said, I try not to dwell on it, so keeping track of them would be too many as far as I'm concerned.
Rick Parrish says he's never kept track of the number of executions. Someone on death row obviously has. Every one of the 12 men on death row will one day be told the date and time of his execution. That common fate inspires unusual friendships. John Stevenson was a member of an organized criminal gang. He assassinated 3 people. Benjamin Ritchie, who had met before, killed a police officer.
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. You all right?
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good to see you. Good. You two are in adjoining cells. How long have you been friends?
About 11 years. Since I got here on death row. He was already here when I got here.
How did this friendship come about? What drew you to each other as friends?
Well, just, we got the same interests. I mean, we play our music loud, we play video games, we work out, play basketball, eat together. If shit goes down, we whoop a motherfucker's ass together. That's how our friendship came about.
Does that mean you have a lot in common?
Yeah. Well, I thought we did.
You're not sure anymore?
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't want you two friends to argue about that.
No, we're not going to argue.
Oh,
no.
What's it?
No, I mean...
If anything, we always argue, but we've never come to blows over nothing.
No, never.
We're like, fuck
That'll
you,
never
fuck
happen.
you, and then half hour later, hey, what we eating tonight? You know, it's over.
Yeah.
It don't matter. It don't mean nothing.
I'm always right in the end, so...
He's the voice of reason. You're the voice of anger, from what you say.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that right?
He keeps a leash on me, yeah. Like, I'd rather lash out at somebody. Like, when I first met Boyan, he hated me. Because I was just a straight-up asshole. I'd be in your face, fuck you. You know, come on in the shower and let's fight. And I calmed way down since then. Yeah, most of the police, they couldn't stand my ass. And I got allowed around older cats, and they calmed me down.
From your point of view, what's this friendship based on? We heard from Richie what he thought about it.
Trusting each other. Basically, that's trust.
Like, if shit goes down, I got his back, he's got mine. See, that's why they moved us, because he got into it with a dude up here, and almost killed him. And the police had to come in and stop him. And after they broke it up and everything, administration got wind that I was going to try to kill the dude because he cut my buddy with a knife. And so they moved me and my buddy Tex here to the back and moved dude up in the front by himself so nobody could get to the dude. Within the first 2 weeks of being on death row, I watched a man get murdered in front of me, get stabbed 42 times, dispatched instantly. And that was my wake up to death row. Like, if you come here, you want to be a bully, you want to take shit from people, this is what's going to happen to you. The dude was just butchered.
Although you witnessed something so horrendous, you still sound pretty angry.
But see, here's the thing. If you show any sign of weakness in here, the sharks will circle. I won't be a victim. I'll be one of the sharks.
I think the sharks are going to circle regardless.
David Mary, 743.
Charge Frank 8347. Show you around to 100 West Avenue J in Stripe. Contact Adrian Goplos. Fire black Silverado, black shirt, gray.
The average sentence at Indiana State Prison is 52 years. In Britain, that might seem like 2 life sentences, but it's infinitely preferable to having an execution order hanging over your head.
Hello.
Lieutenant Boyan has taken me to E Block to meet one prisoner who has escaped the death penalty.
What's up, Harrison? How you doing? Trevor, this is Offender Harrison. I've known Offender Harrison for probably around 6 years. I knew him here, and also he was on death row before.
How was it that you managed to move from death row, which is not a particularly pleasant environment, to this, which is comparatively much more pleasant?
The court ordered me a new trial, and they gave me years instead of the death penalty. So,
how did you get that new trial?
The judge that was in my trial was biased, so they ordered a new trial. And instead of taking the whole thing, I just went ahead and took the deal, which was 150 years. 150 years? A long time, isn't it?
That's a very, very long time indeed.
In other words, I'll die in here. No way I can make out. No way. I'm 62 now. My out date is 66. So there's just no way in the world I can make it out.
There are people who might think that there's not a lot of difference between being on death row and having been given 150 years at the age of 62.
It's like you said, there's still hope there. There's no hope on death row. Once they put you to death, that's it. There's no more wondering what's going to happen. There's no more trying to work your way out of it. There's no more, there's nothing.
Still, in a way, a kind of death sentence.
It is a death sentence. But you got a lot more freedom out here. And you might as well take the freedom and live your life out here, and having a job and being able to work and go to the chow hall and go to the chapel and do that, than to sit up there and just wait to die.
How long were you on death row?
18 and a half years.
What was it like to spend so long knowing that you faced execution?
It was very, very hard. Very hard. It's hard to do it up on X Road. Sitting there waiting for your last meal, your last day, not knowing when it's going to come.
Why were you on death row?
They said I killed 3 people. But I was up there.
You would probably have been executed.
Executed, yes.
Had a date been set for that?
Yes, I had about 2 months.
That was a pretty close run thing.
Yes.
What was that moment like for you when you heard that you had avoided execution?
It was a great moment. It was a great moment. Even though I still got a lot of time to do, like you said, where there's life, there's hope.
As he said, James Harrison will not leave this prison alive. But he knows he'll never be strapped to a gurney and given a lethal injection just after midnight. Like most of the inmates, Harrison now enjoys the strange freedom of not knowing the date and time of his death.
I'm at the Bill apartment. Been here 3 minutes already and nobody's come out.
Before leaving the prison at the end of my first week, I asked to see Benjamin Ritchie again. But this time, face to face. In the year 2000, he shot and killed a policeman. At the time, Ritchie was on parole for burglary. With less of the bravado he showed in the company of his friend, I wanted to hear his view of his life and his crime.
Talk me through the incident which led you to be here.
Well, my crime is shooting a police officer and killing him. And it started off, you know, pretty harmless as a theft crime. Me and my friends would ride around and carjack people and take their rims from their cars from them. And my buddy's car was already full, so I decided, let's get a van or a truck and we fill it up with some rims and take it back and we can go sell everything. I got in a high-speed chase and wrecked into a house and jumped out and took off running. I was trying to get away, you know, but the cop was young and he was on my ass. And I thought maybe if I, you know, take my gun out and fire it a couple times, it'd scare him because, you know, he's a Beach Grove police officer. It's kind of a good neighborhood. Like, how many times has he been shot at, you know? You know, if that bullet would have hit just less than half of an inch lower, he'd be alive today. And I'd probably have a long, lengthy prison sentence, but I wouldn't be on death row, man.
How were you apprehended? How were you caught?
Well, I actually got away. I made it back actually a few blocks away to some family's house and a girl I was seeing and got away. And I didn't know I killed him until I got back to the house and seen it on the news, and that just destroyed me. I knew I hit him in the backyard, but I didn't know he was dead, right? I fell asleep. The next thing I know, I wake up and hear my buddy says they're outside. I wake up and it was like in the movies, you see a whole bunch of red dots from their guns going in and out the windows. And I was like, yeah, it's bad, man. I told him go ahead and go out, leave the house. And I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't have no gun, I couldn't fight no more, so I just gave up.
What went through your mind when the court pronounced you guilty?
I was trying to portray a tough guy in court, so when they gave me the death sentence, I laughed at them. And the prosecutor told everybody that's the voice of evil. Which I would agree at the time, yeah. You know, I deserved the death penalty. I was young and didn't care about anybody at all but myself. Or anything. And I deserved that sentence at the time. And yeah, I just pretty much laughed at them when they gave it to me. But then, you know, when I was by myself, it really sunk in like, man, you're more likely going to be executed one day. And
Johnny has the money for lawyers at the ACLU.
You know what I mean? Cried a little bit.
Was it inevitable that sooner
Johnny has the money for lawyers at the ACLU.
I always knew as a kid I'd probably end up in prison. Yeah. It's weird because when I was a kid, I was asking.
Johnny has the money for lawyers at the
Every time we drive by a prison,
ACLU.
I wonder, what are those guys doing? What's it like in there? What are they up to? You know what I mean? Why should I care? I'm a kid. Why should I care? But because I just always knew I was going to end up in there because I just had a problem with the rules, with authority. And as you can see, I'm here because of that.
Because you killed the police officer, you face execution. If it does come to that, would you face that moment with deep regret, with remorse, or with defiance?
I would definitely regret it and definitely have remorse. But I'd also have a little defiance. Like, why are you killing me? You said killing's wrong, but yet you're premeditatedly strapping me to this table and you're going to poison me to death. You're going to kill me. And that's what I would, you know, resent.
Other car. Negative, we're arriving.
Car do I mean?
Arriving 10-4.
To Brian? Somebody on the car.
Flying down 1002 Leopard. 331. I'm clear for this. Back on.
I'm pretty sure I was told to Brian. Take a picture of. She's at the end of one of these townhouse landings. I think it's 3. There's another one to go with there.
Mr. President.
The Senator for Oklahoma.
Mr. President, our nation's walked through the Supreme Court.
The Senator will suspend the Senate's in a quorum call.
Mr. President, I asked the nation many